Hey, random stranger. It's been about over 6 months now since we last watched Made in Abyss, and so it had to happen sooner or later. Today, we're going to be listening through the first soundtrack of Made in Abyss, of which there are two, both of them composed by Kevin Penkin, an Aussie boy from Perth, which I'm quite proud about. And to be honest, I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do this. I'm definitely keen to listen through everything, but I also know that, at least according to Spotify, this first soundtrack has a runtime of about an hour and 45 minutes, and then the second one is another hour and a half, which is quite a lot. So I don't know if I'll edit the reactions down later, or maybe we can just chill to a super long listening sesh and then you guys can skip to whatever parts interest you the most. So I guess we'll just play it by ear. I'll also try my best not to pause during my first listen through, but if there are moments where my musical brain is just exploding and I absolutely have to stop and express my thoughts right then and there, I will. But generally, I think I don't want to be talking too much over the music. Let's get started. Oh man, I'm pretty excited. It's always good to come back to a show or a series after some distance, especially with such a heavy series as Made in Abyss and all of the trauma that I still remember, but also the beauty and the profoundness with which it dealt with a lot of themes like religion and morality and all that. Also one last thing. I am heavily indebted to Joseph Nied for sending through this badass spreadsheet that they made, listing all of the tracks and where they appear in the show. Actually, I want to pull it up so you guys can have a little preview of this little gem. Yeah, you guys see that? Yeah. So this is basically what I'm going to be referring to throughout this reaction. Yeah, when I decided I wanted to react to the soundtracks, I wanted to do something similar, but it would have taken me hours, if not days. So thank you so much, Joseph Nied, for being such a legend, mate, and just sharing this with me out of the goodness of your heart. So yeah, let's go and see what the music has to say. Okay, we are all set. We're starting with disc 1, track 1, Made in Abyss. Okay, let's do this. It's so peaceful. I do remember this track. I love the piano and that other sort of clavichord sounding instrument. Or maybe it's just a distorted keyboard. Nice strings. Oh, that was such a nice Ide. These strings are exquisite. I love the cascading of the strings as well down the scale. Oh man, that was a really beautiful and a haunting kind of track, which I guess encapsulates everything that the Abyss is. You know, it looks stunning with all of its greenery and the waterfalls and the whatnot, but also there's danger lurking behind absolutely every single corner. There was also an interesting use of these synths in the background. Let me see if I can find it again. Okay, here. Yeah, these ones. Just like faint synthy echoes along with the strings and the piano. It just gave it that extra touch of mystery. And plus what I was talking about before, like this constant sense of lurking danger. That was a really good start. Okay, track 2, Roar of the Abyss. That heartbeat is stress-inducing. Oh. Whoa. Oh. Ah, it's such a guttural sound in the bass. Definitely sounds like some kind of creature of the abyss. Oh. Oh. Whoa. This is really intense. It's ticking of a clock as well. There's angry cellos. Whoa. Oh, I got literal chills listening to that, and that was only like a minute and a half. Oh man, I felt, was there some weird shepherd tone stuff happening there? Like, so the shepherd tone, if you're not aware, it's really common in horror movies where they basically layer different octaves on top of each other and then they're faded in and out to create this illusion that the pitch goes higher and higher and higher, but you never actually reach the top. So basically there's never any resolution to the tension that builds. There's no drop of the beat. I don't know, I want to listen to that again. Okay, let's do this. Those taps, it's like something is falling down into the abyss. I don't know how he made that sound. Yeah, you see how in the bass there's that pitch that seems to be climbing higher and higher and higher, but it doesn't actually ever get there. Love the vocals as well. And then it's gone now. Oh man, so different to the first track. Okay, so just referring to the Badass spreadsheet, this track was played when Riko encounters the revived meat at the Seeker camp, during their encounter with the Orbed Piercer, and when Nanachi discovers MIDI in the elevator. Okay, so that makes total sense now. I mean, this track is basically played whenever some horrific stuff. I mean, some pretty horrific stuff of the horrific was happening. So, track 3, Beni-Kuchi-Nawa. Love the piano and the cello. Very predatory sounding. Oh. What is that woodwind instrument? Is that a bassoon? I'm bad with woodwinds. It's got this weird carnival feel. And there's that clavichord sounding thing again. Whoa. That synth in the background. I love this full orchestral setup. Whoa. Oh my gosh, that violin off the string playing is so scratchy. The atonality of this is just so jarring and so wonderful. Oh. Whoa. What is happening? Holy crap. Okay, I don't know, but that track was just perfect chaos, and I'll have a look at the spreadsheet in a bit, but it definitely sounded like he was trying to convey the thrill of the chase. Maybe it was when Riko and Reg were being chased by one of those creatures. Let's see. Oh, right, so it plays when the Crimson Switchboard attacks Riko. Okay, yeah. Well, that definitely did the job then. There was this part that I really loved. Let me just go back. Okay, let's start from here. Yeah, just some very angry strings. And the scratchy violin should be coming in soon. Yep. Yeah, I love how the piano echoes the violin. And it's like there's just this back and forth between the two. Like they're competing on chaos. And then the full orchestra hits you in the face. And then it just cuts out to this percussive beat. Yeah, and just some more atonal madness. Oh man, yeah, this track is just absolute chaos and rush, and yeah, it's pretty badass. Okay, track 4, Days in the Sun. Let's go. Just whiplash from the last track. It's so different. It's just so warm and inviting. I like that xylophony, and now like a clavichordy sound. Oh, nice. Oh, but then they just add that scratchy synth in. Just to like throw that bit of discomfort in there. And then we're back to this smooth warmness. Okay. It was definitely a track I think that played in the first few episodes where they haven't actually gone down into the abyss yet, I think. Let me double check. Okay, so Days in the Sun plays during a montage of Reg's months on the surface. Yeah, okay. Yes, because this track, it reminds me of how bright and optimistic the town of Orth is. You know, the town that's at the mouth of the abyss, including all of their festivals celebrating and deifying the white whistles, and how it celebrates this frontier culture that's basically built on sending kids down to their likely deaths to mine for relics in the abyss and then maybe one day become whistles themselves, or white whistles. Yeah, so it's interesting. I pointed out there was that scratchy synth again. Not scratchy, but kind of like a discomforting synth sound that's just laying underneath this bright tune, and it's only there for a couple of seconds. And it just reminds me of how the people of Orth put this veneer of celebration over what is a pretty brutal culture. Probably because most people have no idea what it costs to become a white whistle. Like, at the end of the day, it is about sacrificing another human being in order to get to that high point in your career. Yeah, I don't know, it was interesting. Track 5, Rafters. Nice. Is that a kabasa? Okay, I feel like we're definitely still at the orphanage or at the surface. I like how much he uses this clavichord instrument. If it is a clavichord, please correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, it's like a weird mixing of traditional sounding and then these synthy instruments. It really makes it really interesting. Ooh. Always something ominous sounding in the bass line. Okay, just repeating the melody again, but now with that slightly scary sounding bass note, like the duh. Okay. Yeah, basically, I mean, a very light track with quite an acoustic sound. But again, always with in the middle of the track and all the way to the end, there's that repeated bass note. And it just stays there, holding down the melody all the way until the end. Kind of like this lurking shadow that's waiting to jump out at the right time. You know, everything's all good and happy, and then suddenly, you know something is just behind a door or whatever. Yeah. Again, which is I felt like what Made in Abyss did when I was watching it. Like, first few episodes, you know, you're admiring the scenery, how happy the kids are, and then all of a sudden it just goes from 0 to 100 and you're looking at someone's torn limb or something, or a man-eating monster. So, interesting. Track 6, Treehouse. I wonder if this is referencing the Seeker camp, because I believe that was built in a tree. All right, let's go. No, this is giving me Bondrude vibes. This is just all scary atmosphere. I like that really strong echo effect. It's like the abyss, looking into the abyss, and it just goes on and on and on and on with no end, no bottom. Is that it? Yeah, I definitely feel like this is what would play when you're descending into the pit of hell, or the abyss, same thing. I really want to know where this was played. It didn't, I think it was a bit too scary for Ozen. I mean, Ozen is scary, but she's not the big bad. Okay, Treehouse. Plays very shortly when the orbed piercer first appears, and when Bondrude speaks to Nanachi and Midi in the elevator. It's so crazy how you can use music to signal certain characters. I mean, I didn't know for sure that it was Bondrude, but yeah, the Hell of Pit sort of vibes that I was getting definitely made me associate that track with Bondrude. And none other than the scene that is the most horrifying of all scenes in that season, which was the elevator scene with Nanachi and Midi, which I still to this day haven't rewatched because I just can't. Like, I still can hear the sound of Midi splitting apart in my head, and I still remember what that sounds like, and I'm not in a rush to repeat that. Track 7, New World. Cool. Very strong and very powerful start. Oh, that back and forth and the tones sounds like church bells almost. we got beautiful strings. I love when he brings those in. Oh, those are definitely church bells. But it's so jarring, especially with that bass thump. Oh, nice string harmony. Ooh. That end with just the brom and the bass. I really like that one. Definitely got the sense of grandeur there. And especially with the church bells, it reminded me of the religious grip that the abyss has over the people living around it. Everyone there is there because of the abyss, whether you're serving food or, picking rags or, a whistle. It's like everyone in Orth serves the abyss with a fervor. And they dedicate everything they have to exploring it and serving the people who reach the pinnacle of their social hierarchy, which is the White Whistles. I mean, I remember towards the end of season 1, you really solidify the sense that the abyss is its own character and is even a predator in terms of how it attracts humans in and then just devours them like a carnivorous plant. It has certain characteristics of a carnivorous plant, and I really remember that discussion really clearly, especially with the curse, which prevents its prey from ascending back to the surface the deeper they go into the abyss because of the force field. And I think that's one of my favorites so far, that track. Okay, track 8, To the Abyss. Oh, it's very exploratory. It's nice layering of melodic parts. Oh! Oh, that was nice. Man, I love when it's just percussion and then he introduces the strings. Oh, it's so good. Oh, I love the interplay between the violin that's playing this top part and then the supporting strings underneath. Wow. Okay, I know I said the last track may have been my favorite, but I think this one topped the last one. I mean, don't you feel like that track ended with just looking right down into the abyss and having your breath catch because you can't see anything but a bottomless pit, and the majesty of it just overwhelms you? Oh man. I want to listen to that part again. I love that part where the strings are ascending higher and higher in pitch. Wait, let me just find it again. Okay, it's right here. Yep, this part. Oh, so beautiful. It just keeps going higher and higher. Oh, so good. I feel like with the ascending in pitch, it's like matching the excitement that Riko had for going into the abyss at the beginning, like before they've encountered any of the traumas that they come across down there. It's just that getting pumped up that you're getting to go finally into the abyss, which has been your dream for your entire life. So this track, To the Abyss, plays in the very first scene of the show. Plays while the kids walk through the slums to the entrance of the abyss. And while Reg and Riko explore the first layer. Okay, yeah, so it was definitely in the early days, pre-trauma days. Also remember, to go along with the optimism of that track, I remember when when Riko said goodbye to Nat and they made this promise that they'd see each other again, which at the time, yeah, maybe it was just something nice to say, and maybe Riko really believed it, because Riko is like an infallible optimist, but at that time she hadn't really encountered the horrors of the abyss just yet, and so she was able to make such a promise. That was a really good one. Track 9, Underground River, opening version. Okay. Oh, this is that beautiful vocal song at the beginning, which I thought was the opening, but it wasn't.
Traveling the ether back to you, to a land so far away. I feel the distance in between. A fragment of the world that used to be. Speaking through
Oh, just strange emphasis of beats. Whoa, the addition of that brass in there. Nice. Strings. too short. Oh, that was such a beautiful mash of notes and sounds and instruments right there at the end that it built up towards. Man. I should look up the lyrics and just see what those are all about. Okay, it's got the lyrics here. Traveling the ether back to you to a land so far away. I feel the distance in between, a fragment of the world that used to be. Speaking through the river stream. Calling to me, luring me down, though I know just what I am. Who I could be is the mystery to solve, I shall find. The underground river's soul, let it shine and let it grow. I feel like it feels like these are from the perspective of someone who's already down in the abyss and has experienced that weird time dilation and all the other warped effects that the abyss has on your mind the further down you go. So that's why they feel the distance and why the world that they came from, or the surface, just seems like a fragment of what they used to know. Calling to me, luring me down. And the luring definitely puts into mind the lure of the abyss and how it can change people and how it draws people in. I mean, I'm thinking in particular of Riko, who has been connected to the abyss since birth due to her having been revived by that womb-like curse-repelling vessel, and how her desire to head into the abyss may have a large part to do with how she was born. Who I could be is a mystery to solve, I shall find. Yes, I feel like because of how Riko came into being, the only way that she can really find herself or really understand what drives her was to go into the abyss. It's maybe, I mean, yes, she wanted to find Liza, but also I feel like there's another part of her that just feels that strong connection to the abyss, and it's part of the way that she's going to unlock the mystery behind what her purpose in life is. Yeah. I'm not sure what the underground river is. I mean, I know there was a river of sorts on the fourth layer when they encountered the orb piercer, but I don't know if that's related. Man, it was just so nice to listen to that in full, even though I wish it was like 10 minutes longer. All right, straight back to it. Track 10, Maul. Whoa. Stress. Oh, that sound. Oh, those synths. God, this is so intense. Damn, that mad snare. Oh. I'm so stressed right now. It's amazing. Whoa. Just stops right there. Wow. Whoa. Oh man. What to say about that? Okay, first of all, I loved how he layered on the different sounds one by one, like the synths and then the different percussion beats going on. And then how everything just suddenly became muted. Like it didn't make it any less stressful. Like in fact, it just made it more tense. Wait, I want to go back to that part. Okay, it's here. Yes, everything just pulls back a bit, but it's like this fake sense of rest. It's like that one last reprieve before the serial murderer comes after you again. It just keeps building. Yeah, and they're just full on open, like, sound blasting in your face. That is madness. I really like it though. Okay, so why is this track so stressful? Let's consult the spreadsheet. Maul plays just before Reg uses his incinerator against the corpse weavers. Okay, so the corpse weeper. So that was the monster that mimics the cries of its victims as it eats their faces off, I think. Really liking how for each of the different types of monsters there's just a different kind of stress in the track. It was also, it's interesting how the rhythm that starts off the track. So wait, let's go right back to the beginning. This one. Yeah, this it basically it doesn't stop right from the get-go. It doesn't stop all the way until the end, and you just have a whole lot of stuff that's added or taken away around that that underlying rhythm. It's like the track's heartbeat, almost like a very, very super stressful heartbeat. Okay, track 11, Walking the Streets. Good. Very folksy. I like it. Again, it's very Orphean kind of tune. Ugh, weird dissonant chords down on the bass. This bass line, it sounds very game-like. Almost sounds like you're playing an old school platform game of some sort. Uses all these weird sounds in the bass line. like that. Yeah, that was just an all-round fun sounding track. So this one was played as Reg and Riko try to escape harbor on the first layer. Okay, well, I mean, I did say it was sort of like a platform gamey kind of backing track, and they definitely were like jumping here and there very quickly to get away from harbor. So I guess that makes sense. All right, track 12, Remembering Home. Let's go. It's a very beautiful piano intro. Very simple, but beautiful. Ooh, those echoey, distorted string sounds. Nice. And then you've got the acoustic strings. I love the slide. Yeah, that slide up the string. The simplicity of this is very effective. It makes the whole thing a lot more solemn. Yeah, it's just repeating those chords over and over again. The 6, 7, 1. Oh, that was different. Just like suddenly has a major taste to it. Just for a few moments. Damn. Okay. Yeah, like I said, this track is relatively simple, but very emotional in the way that he layered different parts over those simple chords that were happening in the piano part. And especially with that solo violin that came in partway through on the deeper register of the violin. Just the very simple chords going up the scale. Again, lent it a solemnity. So I wonder what it was used for, this track. Remembering Home, episode 13. Reg makes Nanachi promise not to kill themselves after Midi's death. Oh man, I remember being a mess watching that. I mean, on par with the elevator scene, although not so much on the horror side, but emotionally, I mean, I can still hear the way that Nanachi cried right after Reg incinerated Midi. And not only the trauma that Nanachi is going through, but how messed up Reg was from the fact that he had to do it, that he had to murder basically his friend's best friend. Yeah, so I can definitely see how this piece would have amped up that emotion by 100 times. Yeah, that was really well done. Oh man, I mean, listening to this soundtrack, is like reliving all of the experiences and the emotions of Made in Abyss again. It's actually quite something. Alright, let's keep going. Track 13, Those Everyday Feels. Oh, I remember this track. It's iconic. Is that a vibraphone? I love how the two of these vibraphone things are playing off each other. Oof. Ah, oh, nice. Love the percussion. Ooh, so crispy. Whoa. Man, that was like super short and sweet. I don't know. Well, I mean, I don't have much to say, but that was just an extremely crispy track. I really like that. Let's see. I must have used it a lot if I remembered it like almost instantly. Okay, Those Everyday Feels. When Riko first discovers Reg, when Shiggy describes the dangers of each layer. Ah, yes, that map. And then when Riko sees the results of Reg's incinerator against the corpse weepers. Okay. Alright, track 14, 2 months. I don't remember what 2 months could be in reference to. Alright, let's see. Okay, it's like another piano-based track with a very frantic rhythm underneath it. It's sort of reminding me of Underground River for some reason. There's similarity in the chords. Well, that's different. Oh, I love that. Ta-ta-ta-ta. That deep synth in the bass is back. Oh. Choral voices? Oh, that's an interesting contrast. The lightness of these notes and then that deep synth in the bass. It's like night and day, those two types of sounds together. Okay, Wait, let's look at where this was played. Episode 2 plays when Leah talks about Liza's past to Riko. Interesting. Okay, I mean, it definitely had like that sunny feel to it, which matches Liza to a T, because like whenever we saw Liza, she was always cast in that brilliant glow with her long flowing blonde hair. We know that she had a huge impact on the people around her. I mean, anyone who can break down Ozen's walls had to have been a real character. But we also know that she had a lot of rough edges. I mean, she was famously known as the Annihilator and inflicted violence on a lot of creatures in the Abyss, plus a lot of humans as well, as in the foreign excavators that would, I guess, invade the Abyss. Yeah, so the fact that that track had such an interesting mix of sounds in there, like with that ever-present, really deep synthy bass that has that ominous character to it, plus all the really light, I don't know if it was string or something like a guitar, like a synthy guitar sound that's just bubbly on the surface. Yeah, those interesting mixes actually reflects Liza's character really well, because she's such a jumble of contradictions. You know, on the one hand, she is the very face of death to those who are her enemies, but also to the people that she really loves, she would do anything for them. Yeah, no, that was a really good track. Track 15, Reg Wakes. Let's go. I feel like I'm in a steampunk world. Very obviously related to Reg. I mean, very machine-like, these sounds. Like a harpsichord. That repeating noise in the left ear sounds like steam being blown out. Like some industrial machine. Again, it's got like a very carnival like feel to this. Also, there's dissonant chords in the background as well. Ooh. It sounds like someone's trying to adjust the radio frequency. Alright. I mean, it's very plodding, very artificial sounding machine track, and I guess because it's Reg, that makes sense. Although, I mean, it's interesting, it was interesting reflecting on Reg throughout the series, because everyone treats him just like another relic or a machine when they first find him in there, just pinching and trying to take him apart to see how he works. when really, as the series went on, you really saw that in a lot of ways he was much more human than a lot of the people around him, including maybe especially Riko. You know, he also physically, he had something that feels like skin. He can feel pain, and emotionally he's quite sensitive, and he's definitely more versed in the matters of the heart than Riko is. So yeah, it was interesting watching the pair of them interact with each other and sort of thinking, wait, which one is the machine again? Yeah, so it's interesting that that track really emphasized Reg's machine parts, but hopefully there are other tracks later. But the next one is a Reg focused one as well that is less, you know, like the gears turning in a machine with no feelings. All right, theme of Reg. Let's go. Is that a clarinet? Well, already this sounds very different to the previous machine-themed track. I'm all here for this very woodwind heavy track. Nice. It's just a playful track. I don't know why, but that sequence there sounded very familiar for some reason. Yeah, the da da da. Have we heard that before? Wait. Does the spreadsheet say anything? So theme of Reg. Oh, it never plays, ironically. It's the basis for many other tracks. Okay. Bears some chord and melody similarities to Hanezeve Caradhina, which comes later in the track list, I think. Okay, so I don't know, maybe we heard some snippets of the melody line in some previous tracks. I don't know which one though. But yeah, that was a much more relaxed soundtrack compared to the previous one, which was all like nuts and bolts, whereas this one was definitely reflecting Reg's more innocent and human-like side. So yeah, I really enjoyed that one, especially because it was so woodwind heavy. Not a lot of these tracks are, like usually it's very solemn piano and violin, or like a mix of crazy synths and frantic percussive beats. So this is a nice sort of different type of track. Track 17, Gallantry and Recapitulation. Maybe Reg's Gallantry, and I don't know about Recapitulation. In music, recapitulation is like when a familiar theme is repeated or revisited. So maybe we'll hear some familiar sounding tunes in this one. from previous tracks. All right, let's go. Ooh, definitely sensing the drama in this one. Just a bunch of string instruments playing these 16th notes off the string. Ooh. Oh wow. That was such a hard switch between off the string playing, which is like bouncing off the string, and just on the string. Nice. Ooh, I love those long held brass notes. Man, this is frantic. Oh, here we go. There's our old friend, bass synth. Just when everything's like fading out too. Huh. Definitely relate that deep bass synth to either to the depths of the abyss, you know, or Bondreed. I don't know. Okay, that was interesting. Let me just see where this track was played, because it didn't sound like a monster chase. So Gallantry and Recapitulation supposedly plays during the second orb piercer fight during the movie, doesn't play in the show. Okay. So I guess the gallantry part really was referring to Reg's, I guess, protection of Riko. It's always so interesting watching those two because, yes, technically Riko is defenseless, would have been defenseless without Reg and his incinerator and his ability to fight. But also, he's so timid, at least to begin with anyway, and it was Riko's spirit and her iron will that really kept them going, I think. Track 18, Riko's theme, finally. I'm gonna guess it's gonna be very bright and optimistic sounding. Okay, let's do this. Yep. So light and fluffy. Oh. Yeah, definitely very playful and sunny. Sort of staccato in the piano. Oh, nice. Oh, that's some nice harmony. Wow, he's really using all the instruments in this one. The pizzicato. I like that contrast between the like electric synth keyboard and then the acoustic piano, and then now with the strings. I don't know why, but it just reminds me of Hobbiton, this track. Oh. I like those rolling drums. Gives off this very strong sense of adventure without any of the ugly, traumatic bits. I liked that one. It was very appropriate and fit right in with Riko's character. I was wondering if he would include any sort of darker elements, but no, there's none of those deep, synthy, ominous bass notes. It's all just very sunny, very light playing on the strings. Especially the pizzicato, so it's like when the string players pluck the strings instead of playing them with a bow, and when you bring that in, you know that it's a track that's just going to be all sunshine and smiles. So yeah, I like that one. I also liked how the different instruments took over the melodic line at different parts and kind of just bounced it back and forth between them. Yeah, that was cool. One more thing about Riko before we move on. I feel like even when they went deeper down into the layers of the abyss and encountered these horrifying creatures like the corpse weepers and then the ore piercer, and how she almost lost a limb because of the ore piercer, I feel like she never lost her fascination with the abyss and what's down there. Like, she would look at these terrifying, lethal creatures and only see something that would sate her endless curiosity of how the abyss is like. So yeah, this track definitely reflects that just untainted as of yet view of the abyss, and how much she wants to be there despite all of these dangers that she's had to face and despite almost losing her life. So track 19, Swings and Roundabouts. Okay. Whoa. That's some very clean cross-string playing. I almost feel like we're looking up from the bottom of the abyss up into the light. Ah, this is beautiful. I like that. like a harpsichord sounding instrument. And then just that piano to smooth out the chaos of the string playing. That was nice. I mean, just another one of those tracks that has something magical about it and really conveys the mysterious and the overwhelming beautiful aspects of the abyss. Because it is, I mean, you can't deny that it is such a vibrant, colourful, lively place. It just happens to be also like a death trap, but yeah, it's something of the sublime in the abyss, and yeah, that was a good one. Track 20, Tasukete, means help me. Oh, I think I know what this one is about. It's the corpse sweepers, I think, when it's eating someone's face and is mimicking its victims' cries for help to attract Reg and Riko into its hunting grounds, I guess. Alright, let's see. Ooh, yeah, definitely a predator track. Whoa. Oh man. It sounds like a car alarm. Oh, here we go. Return of the sound. Man, it's just, I mean, it's just such a cacophony of stress noises. You've got the car alarm, you've got the sound, got that deep synth. Whoa. Just, oh god, that like really scratch against the ear noise. It's so screechy. Oh, mate. I mean, you know what? It's these types of tracks where, I mean, I'm pretty sure, like, let's check if it was to do with the corpse sweeper. Tasukete, episode 5, plays during the encounter with the corpse sweepers. Nice. I mean, yeah, so these tracks, they're not pleasant to listen to, but I really appreciate them because, I mean, what's happening on screen isn't pleasant at all. Like, you've got some poor guy, having his guts eaten by a corpse sweeper who is furthering, you know, his hunting by impersonating the very victim that they're eating. So, yeah, I really like these sorts of tracks, even though, like that, I don't know what that was, like that screechy noise that just rakes across your ears. It's not comfortable at all, but very well done in terms of conveying the discomfort that's happening. Track 21, Air. Let's go. What is that? It sounds like the ocean, or like the wind rushing through a tunnel. But what's that? Quite a threatening track. Yeah, that ringing tone is so weird. Interesting. There were there's some weird noises in there. I don't know. Maybe it sounded like he maybe used the apprehension engine in this one, which is this weird box-like thing with lots of things sticking off of it, and you kind of just whack it or, you know, play on it to create all sorts of weird noises. Very horror-like, that one. So according to the spreadsheet, air never appears during the show, or at least not for long enough to be identified. Man, I just can only imagine the number of tracks that Kevin Penkin had to leave on the cutting floor, just going wild with all this experimentation and how to best project this eerie sense of feeling that is the abyss. I guess we shall never know how many tracks never made it into the actual show. Alright, track 22, Welcome to My World. And we're back to light, airy, and hopeful. Oh, that's a flute. The friendliest of all instruments, in my opinion. I like how it's just the flute and the broken chords on the piano. This melody line in the flute reminds me a little bit of Reg's theme. Oh, here we go with the strings. There's the clavichord. I like that this is ascending. sort of like to some ethereal place. Okay, so again, it ended on just a set of long, drawn out, dissonant set of notes. I feel like that reminded me of another track. So yeah, the first half definitely sounded vaguely like the beginning of Reg's theme, just a couple of notes in there. And then the last half, when the strings came in, especially, and the clavichord, reminded me of, which track was it? I think it was To the Abyss. Basically, it had the same sort of building crescendo and just an array of instruments coming together to create this transcendent moment. Wait, actually, let's just go back and play To the Abyss. Okay, I think from here. Yeah, there's the ascending of the pitch. And that clavichord sounding instrument, I'm not sure if it actually is. Yeah, so I feel like Welcome to My World is like the last half anyway is like a percussionless version of this. Yeah. It also ends I think in a set of dissonant notes as well. Yep. So you just kind of left hanging and sort of staring down into the abyss. All right, let's keep going with track 23, Hanezeve Caradhina, which I think was the track that the theme of Reg is supposedly related to. So let's see. Oh, this is the track. Does the abyss speak? So beautiful, that voice with the piano. Oh, and the harmonies. Ooh. These synths and these chords make it quite a bit darker. Ooh. Oh my god. That's a vocal, isn't it? Oh, I love the vocals and the strings and that bass and just all together. Nice. Just that cascade down the piano. I mean, that is without a doubt like a masterpiece of composition. It was just beautifully constructed to build that tension, but also there were points where it just felt like a lightness and the light just pierced through the tension as well. Okay, let's go back through some really interesting parts. Actually, you know what? Let's just play that again. It starts off so quiet with just the piano. Okay, so I did hear the words Hanezeve Caradhina, just barely, but it's my understanding that the vocals in this piece aren't actually singing any particular language. It's Abyss speak. I guess it's... where did I read it? Yeah, so it's more meant to convey a kind of emotion more than anything. I thought that was so cool. Let's keep going. Okay, yeah, so I feel like this first 1 minute and 10 seconds, it feels like it's introducing the Abyss as this wonderful place to explore and to aspire to explore. I'm just picturing in my head the beautiful view of Orth surrounding and spreading out on the mouth of the Abyss. And there's this like mysterious vocals going on. It's sort of like drawing you in, and it's just all around beautiful. But then I think as it keeps going, it's sort of the next, I don't know, minute or so represents like someone actually going down into the abyss, and you sort of realize everything is not as it seems. Yeah, so you get these minor sounding and diminished chords, and like the dominance of the percussion as well. Also, that vocal right there, I mean, when it first came in, I thought, wait, that can't be a human singing. It has to be, it sort of sounded like an erhu, like the traditional Chinese stringed instrument. That just sounds very, just high-pitched, a little bit whiny. But no, that is someone singing. That's crazy. And it's just these ominous sounding chords and sounds. Okay, and then when the vocals rejoin here with pretty much the full orchestration, there's just a much fuller sound, and I feel it's... Hang on, let's just play a little bit more. Yeah, you've got the strings, the vocals, the percussion, the synth underneath. The synth that I always associate with like Bondroid or something dark and ominous. So you've got all of those elements coming together, and I feel like it just presents the Abyss in all of its complexity. So it's beautiful, but it's dangerous. It's mysterious, but also there's this ominous, darker side to it. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know how he composed this piece, but I can see why. Oh my gosh, it's got like 3 million, 3 million listens so far. It's definitely the most listened to track out of this entire soundtrack, and I can see why. Yeah, I mean, it's just a brilliant track all around. Also, just one last thing before moving on. I know why it sounds like the theme of Reg now. Let's just play that to compare it. When the melody comes in. Yeah, this is very similar to the Hanezeve Caradhina melody, especially these notes. I can almost hear the Hanezeve Caradhina playing over this, like the vocals. Yeah, just that part. That's interesting that there would be that melodic connection there. Well, I mean, Reg is from the Abyss and was born down there and is the only one who is immune to it. So track 24, Depths of the Abyss. Here we go. Oh. Oh, it's extremely dissonant having those ominous bass echoes as a backdrop for this really soft, melodic, sort of sad piano. I don't know why, but I'm thinking about MIDI. It's very contemplative, but disturbing. What is that? Oh, oh shit. Is that like the voice of Satan? That scared me. Sorry, just okay, so most of that piece was quite exquisite, bar the can't even talk right now. I was so shocked and disturbed at that voice that came in. But yeah, bar at the beginning anyway, the deep bass synth, the rest of the piano melody was really sweet but sad, like sadly sweet. And then you have that voice. Yeah, definitely. I mean, if not the voice of Satan, then definitely the personification of the abyss in all of its deadly, amoral, I guess, thirst for human lives. Oh man. Okay, I have to see. Just have a look at the spreadsheet. So, depths of the abyss. When MIDI is introduced and when Nanachi on the surface prays to be able to go to the abyss, it's so weird. It's so weird how I immediately connected this track to MIDI. It was just, I think it was because we know that at least her and Nanachi had these huge dreams for themselves, right? To go into the abyss and become heroes of sorts. Or, you know, they were recruited to this really special research project by Bondrude, one of the White Whistles. And at the beginning, it's all, I guess this track is from the perspective of, wow, look at where Nanashi and MIDI ended up. One of them is a meat bag, basically, and the other is this Narahete who, you know, has been cast out of society because of who they've become. And then just looking back at where they started and that sadness and realization that the abyss and everyone who serves the abyss, like Bondrude, has messed them up so totally and so completely. Yeah, that track has to be the most disturbing track out of all of them so far that I've listened to, and that's saying a lot. Let's go back to where the voice comes in. So many at the beginning. It's almost like you're putting these kids' dreams against the backdrop of the reality of the terror of the abyss. Oh, so the voice doesn't come in until later. Ooh. Chills. Okay, so that satanic voice is either the abyss itself or possibly Bondrude. I mean, he has been so reduced to his singular desire to learn about and conquer the abyss that he probably he's not equal to the abyss, but I'm pretty sure that he hears the voice of the abyss every single day in his crazy mind and thinks it's the most beautiful thing ever. Because that's who he is now. His entire being is all about the abyss and getting to know the abyss more. That was a crazy track. And it's so short. It's just like 2 minutes and 15 seconds. But oh, got chills all over. Okay, here we go. Last track of disc 1. Track 25, Forest of the Abyss. That cello is like crying. Oh. Okay, these cellos aren't crying anymore. They're angry. Ooh, those wailing synths in the back. Ooh, and those satanic synths again. I mean, it's a relief that's over. Don't get me wrong, I love how that track set up this this sadness at first, and then this tension, and then this agony. And it gets so tense just right up to the end before it cuts out completely. Which is actually quite common for a few of these tracks. Like the building of the tension and then the completely cutting out of sound. It's the Forest of the Abyss. I wonder if that's when Reg and Riko were left by Ozen in the forest. Let's see. Okay, Forest of the Abyss. Oh wow, it's actually using quite a lot of episodes. Episode 2, 6, 10, 11, 12, and 13. So it happens when Riko first reads her mother's letter in Orth, when Ozen reveals the curse-repelling vessel. That was a shocker, finding out that Riko had actually died, but then been revived by that vessel. Because technically she's exactly like that meat that Ozen threw in as well, who turned into this monster that just slithered out and went straight for the abyss. While Riko tells Reg to break her arm, another terrifying scene. When Reg remembers Liza inside Nanachi's shelter, and when Nanachi carries Midi up to layer 4, when the elevator is pulled up. Okay, so again, makes total sense. All of those horrific moments, like the arm and the elevator, they're all there for this track. Oh man. Alright guys, I think we're gonna have to stop it here for today. I very naively assumed that I'd have enough time to get through the whole entire soundtrack, but I will react to Disc 2 very soon and hopefully have that out in the next couple of days or so. That was surprisingly enjoyable, and I mean, reliving all of the terror and the trauma of the Abyss is not exactly what I call a relaxing experience, but I'm just amazed so far at how the music just triggered so many memories of the show, and not just memories of what happened, but memories of what it felt like watching those scenes, especially the particularly hard to watch ones, like the ones where I was feeling super empathetic with someone losing their limb on screen, or just imagining what it felt like to go up in that elevator with Midi. So a soundtrack that does its job so well in conveying all of the different themes and the characters and the events as well. So I mean, I don't think you could ask any more of a soundtrack, and I'm excited to listen to the rest, as well as, I guess, after disc 2 there's another soundtrack 2 as well, which I'm actually definitely gonna react to. So until then, guys, take care and have a good one.